feels powerful now. I mean, let's talk about power. Although, we were talking in the back about you gave everyone hanky-pankies, right? And I said I gave everyone vibrators.
I know.
So let's talk about
She
power
wins.
now.
She wins on the goodie bags.
Okay, so we're going to have a little interactive conversation. I want you all to get involved because when I was standing back there listening to you talk about power, let's open up this conversation. So you're all going to get involved. We're going to get a little interactive here. I'm Shelley Zalis, the CEO of the Female Quotient. And Subha, who are you?
I'm Subha Barry. I'm the CEO of Saramount.
And we all know who you are. You just introduced yourself. Okay, so we know what power means to you because it's about ownership.
100%.
What does power mean to you?
Power means waking up every morning and knowing that I have the courage and the voice for my ideas to be heard. That's
Okay.
power to me.
I love that. And then, Nadia, where are you? I'm right here. Okay. So, not to embarrass you, but I'm going to because anyone that's ever heard me moderate knows I go off script. So here we go. I met you back there. We were walking in, and you said, "Oh, Subha's on your panel today. Subha changed my life." What did she do? And talk loud because I'm not going to get down there and give you a mic because I'm a little jet lagged. So use your voice, own the room, and use your power, girl.
So when I was a 21-year-old advisor at Merrill working Damn it. Okay, so when I was a 21-year-old advisor at Merrill, I'm the only woman in the training program in Los Angeles. I didn't see another woman, for miles. And I was in a room. Subha walked up to me, introduced herself, and said, "Hi, I'm Subha Barry." She was, I think, at that time a managing director or maybe an executive vice president. I had never seen a woman, let alone a brown woman, anywhere near me. And she didn't need to help me get clients, but what she did do was so impactful. She opened every single door of every single senior leader at Merrill and every other organization on Wall Street for the next decade of my life. So that even though I had to walk through it, she was there behind my back watching me and making sure that there was no stumbling and there was no falling. And if something actually went wrong, that she had my back. So it was the most incredible mentorship that I'd ever experienced. And to this day, she's an incredible mentor. So that's...
Wow.
Well, full disclosure, I remember it a little differently. So,
She said.
yeah. So I was starting a multicultural business development group. I walk into this office in Los Angeles, and what I'm really looking for is advisors, wealth advisors, hopefully not all white men, who would be interested in doing business with these diverse communities, Black, Hispanic, Asian, South Asian, East Asian, gays, lesbians. And in this room, I look out and there's this brown woman. And I really hadn't seen another brown woman in wealth advising at Merrill. So you can imagine, it was like I literally joyously ran to her, and she's going, "What do you want from me?" She didn't quite know what I was going to expect of her. And I was just so delighted. And when she said she had my back, that's because lean in works, but it doesn't work if somebody doesn't have your back. And especially for Black and brown women, the leaning in only works if somebody's there holding the back of your blouse to say, "I'm holding you. I got you." So,
Yeah.
Amen to that. We heard earlier today, and it was Madeleine Albright that said, when women don't support other women, they deserve a place in hell. We say, when women support other women, we deserve a place in heaven. So let's go to the positive, and that is what you all did for one another. And now, Nadia, you are paying it forward. And that's what this
Tenfold,
is all about.
hundredfold.
And that is power to the nth degree. And it's the power of the collective, and that's the power of women. And that is true power. It's the power of the collective. Okay, so let's get to power in business, because that is our topic. Business today. Are we making progress? And I know that we talked about 2%, and and money and business and investing. And one of the biggest problems that we have is that the venture capital, and I know we talked about VCs, but less than 2% of venture capital money goes to women, less than 1% to women of color. That is absolutely pathetic. But I want to talk about the business world, because in my opinion, we're going backwards. And we need to go forwards and make progress for women in business. So, Subha, what's your
So
perspective?
I'm going to, I had this because I wanted to make sure I got the numbers right. Among our best companies for multicultural women, 32% of corporate executives are multicultural women. 24% of C-suite leaders are women. So when you really look at the numbers, I'm going to say to you, we're making progress, but it is so slow. So slow that it's going to take forever to catch up. But I want to really point out a success story in the last 2 years. We all saw George Floyd's murder. None of us could avoid watching that on television. And as a result of that, the way the Black community has coalesced in the 22 years that I have been doing the DEI work, there was an inherent divisiveness within the Black community. I used to have people say, I'm not African American, I'm from Africa, I'm from Kenya, I'm from Nigeria. Or they would say, I'm from the islands, I'm from Jamaica, I'm from Trinidad. Something has happened in the last 5 to 8 years where this community coalesced and the 5 fingers became a fist. And that became power, and there is a lesson in there for us. So for other communities of color, we need to find a way not only to come together within our groups. South Asians do not support other South Asians, sadly. So if we can find a way to bridge that divide, learning how to celebrate, honor each other, I think we would find power and success. Think about what is happening with Black women leaders just in the last 18 months. Okay? So I'm calling this intersectional allyship. Let's start within our own communities, and then let us spread it out to other communities of color to begin with, but white women as well. I think if we can learn how to be allies for each other, we would be unstoppable.
Totally agree with that. What do you say about that?
I agree, but I think that part of the reason is because we have been focusing not on the ownership piece, and that's I think why I'm so passionate about getting this piece sort of out into the zeitgeist, is because if we were to ask in all of these situations, like I mentioned, like how much does she own? How much am I going to own? How much equity does that come with? We're going to find increasingly situations where women are in positions not just of leadership, but also of ownership. And I think that that's where you will see less of the bouncing around. Because I think what you and so many of us are frustrated with is that you see progress and then you see it go back, and you see progress and then you see it go back. Again, because we are in these positions of leadership that are temporary and that are fireable. I want to see a combination of both the leadership positions, the boards, the political positions, as well as the people holding and owning the capital, so that when the shit hits the fan, there's going to be some stubborn-ass woman saying, I don't care what your opinion is, I'm writing this check and it's getting done.
Well, I mean, I have to say that was me. I mean, I'd rather be in charge. And so
Yeah.
I left the corporate world and started my own company and created the uncorporate rules. And that's how I became chief troublemaker. I had to break all the rules that made no sense and write my own, so that I could no longer be the exception, but create the new norm and write all the rules that made sense for me and that would make sense for primary caregivers and thrive in the workplace. And that worked quite well.
Right.
And, you know, it was about ownership, you know.
But how many of us are familiar with those numbers? Like, how many of us today walked in knowing that 2% number? That's good. This is Smarty Pants group.
Yeah. No, but I mean, let's go back
But
to
generally
ownership.
speaking, we're more familiar with the percentages of VC, the percentages of women on C-suites. We're so, the stats that are popularized, which mean the battles we're fighting, they tend to not center around ownership. And that's why I personally think that we see a lot of back and forth and progress and backwards. And
But not everyone can just leave and start their own companies. But let's be realistic. And I want to go to you, Subha, for this question, because I think we also, some things are not that complicated. I think one of the biggest problems with representation in companies is we hire 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yep.
And I think we need to hire in threes. And I think we need 3 of everything at every level so that it's not only in lonelies in every position, because that's where, so we can't have ownership at levels. What are we doing about representation? Because I think that becomes a problem when you have, you hire a woman of color at this level and this level and this level, and then we're lacking representation still. We need more of everything.
I think what companies are starting to do now is to look at their process, because just hiring and counting the numbers, it's a lagging indicator. The leading indicator is what are the processes and the practices you've put in place so that when you are recruiting, let's say, for example, all these companies will say, I want a diverse slate of candidates. Great. If you have all white male interviewers, guess who's going to get hired? Okay.
Duh.
So now they've started, about 60% of the companies are now saying, we will look for a diverse slate of interviewers. Okay? Then comes the next challenge. They don't have enough in numbers, so it's the same person they pull out again and again and again to do these interviews. So how do you change that? The idea that you take employees from your employee resource groups and you train them, even if they are more junior, to know how to participate in adding that mix of allowing the person to understand the culture in your organization. It can become a development opportunity for that person in the employee resource group who may not be that senior, but who may actually get trained in knowing how to interview people and bring them into it. So that's a second one. A third one, you have your promotion processes. How do you take a look at who is up for promotion? What are the criteria? Is it subjective? Is it objective? Or is it someone's favorite person being nominated? So the men get ahead of the women. So if you can embed fairness in process, you hold yourself accountable for it, meaning to say if it doesn't happen in Division A, then the senior leader at Division A does not get their bonus or gets their bonus chopped in half. And if they do it 2 years in a row, they don't have a job. Because remember, if they're not producing revenues, they're not going to keep their job. How long will you kind of drag them on underperforming? Not very long. So why is it that as it relates to talent and people, we're willing to make all these compromises? The last time I checked, if you didn't have any people, unless you have robots, you still can't run your business. Talent is at the core of your business. So I would say to you, embedding fairness in process should be the next loud calling card. And HR is really getting to that. They are starting to look at it. They start to understand what to do, how to do, and there are hundreds of little processes. And to take it and say, how can we embed fairness into it?
Well, then we should change the name of HR to Chief Fairness Officer. Like, let's just call it what it is. Our titles are so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, let's just change the titles and then we'll start operating and acting in a whole new way. Like, let's move on. Let's talk about moving on. I want to have a new conversation. Okay, let's start again. Pre-pandemic, we were going backwards anyways. I mean, it was already 257 years to close the pay gap. Hello, what is so complicated? Equal pay for equal work. Let's close the door of inequity, open the new one. We already know how women in general, 80 cents on the dollar, black women, 64 cents on the dollar, Latinas, 53 cents on the dollar. That is not fair. Okay, we know the numbers. Look at the spreadsheet. So every company, every CEO knows that we're not getting paid fairly. So what is so complicated about fixing that? It means it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to hurt. Ouch, pinch. It's like wearing new shoes. The first time you wear them, it pinches. The more you wear them, the more comfortable you get. Get used to it, okay? And I know all the inequities, so I get that. But we understand. So let's start a new conversation. Pandemic. The gaps have widened. The Great Resignation has happened. Women are leaving their jobs more. I want to get to the Great Retention. We need to get women back into the workplace. Let's talk about solutions, because this is about power in business. What are the things we need to do, new conversation, to get women back in business and to have job satisfaction? We're CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. We have power in our hands. What is it going to take? Moonshot.
A recognition that the workplace was not designed as it is today for women or anybody who cares about families. A recognition and
I'm going to ask all you out there too, start thinking.
a change in the rhetoric, because I still to this day hear about large corporations seeing the drop off where they've invested in women moving up, the ranks, and then they get to the point where they've worked their entire career for that executive level position, that VP position, whatever it is. But what happens is as soon as they get close enough to that position that they see what it ate for lunch and how often they see their kids and what their day-to-day life actually looks like, they leave. And the perception is that they leave because they couldn't crack it, because it was too hard, because the hours were too long, because what was being asked of them was too much. And what's funny is that they tend to leave to start their own thing, where they work harder, longer hours, and have to be more committed than they've ever been before. And so it isn't true, but the narrative exists that women get to a senior level and then they drop off. When what we know the fact is they drop off to start their own things and to work twice as hard as they've worked before. And so what the difference is, though, that I'm seeing is flexibility. So you want to keep women and you want to keep them moving up the ranks, acknowledge that the workplace isn't designed for them, A. B, make it so that it's something that you actually aspire to want to become. When I look at the C-suite of most of these big companies, it is not a place I want to be having lunch, certainly not a place I want to be hanging out for any long period of time.
Okay, take it away, Subha.
So I would say to you, there are two things happening right now that is in our favor. Have you noticed how many corporate CEOs are retiring? Do you see what this has done to them? So let's keep a close watch. Let's keep a close watch on who's taking their place. Because whoever is moving up, somebody else is backfilling that position. So this is an opportunity for women, and especially women of color, to look at opportunities to be able to pitch themselves for those jobs. And I have to tell you, if you looked at what happened during the pandemic, and I'm talking about, we did a number of surveys around dual parent families, okay? And looked at who did what. And we took, this one was the more traditional one, where it was a man and a woman. In the beginning, the men were right there. I'm there to help support this. Chipping in, stepping in. It was never 50-50. It was probably 60-40 or 70-30. Very quickly, it deteriorated to the 90-10. And yet they were both working
baby,
from
fair
home.
Play.
So
Evrosky
I would say
tomorrow.
to you that the challenges, even when there are both parents there and present, the burden unduly falls on the woman. So you have to ask yourself, so you now take a woman of some level of means and affluence, and you realize that she can hire help, she can do all of these other things. What about those women who can't? What is the obligation of society, of government, of large corporations towards these women? And that is where we need to pay attention in terms of childcare, in terms of family leave, in terms of paid maternity, paternity, family leave, as you say. And we were talking about how even when you offer parental leave, the men take a small fraction of the time off as compared to the women. So how do you create equity there? So that's at the bottom. And as you look at women rising through the ranks, the drop-off happens in the childbearing, child-rearing years. It's impossible to keep that balanced. And you cannot do this just with corporations. It has to be a private-public partnership. The government has to play a role in it, and we have to legislate for it. And I'm going to challenge every one of us to be able to add our voice to that, okay? If a country like India can provide, I'm embarrassed. I'm from India, and we always think of ourselves as not as progressive, but when it comes to paid maternity leave, they're off the chart. And so I look at what we offer, and it's abysmal. So we were actually talking about an idea where you could say to large corporations.
Make it happen.
Yes, this is our idea. So large corporations coming together to say, we have great childcare policies that we offer to our employees. How about saying to them, offer it to your geographic area? And the government, we will persuade you to give you a tax break if you were to offer it to all the small and medium-sized businesses in your catchment area. You have the facilities, why not? Open it up. widen that umbrella and say, why should just my employees benefit from it? How about I become a real, socially responsible organization, corporation, and I offer it to all the people in this catchment area? Think about what that would do to that small business owner who cannot afford to offer the same kind of paid leave policies that perhaps a larger corporation can. So that's sort of, we are going to work on that
We're
together.
just teasing it up. We're teasing you all. Okay, so by the way, this clock is teasing me because I had 5 minutes left for all of you. So I want my 5 minutes back, just saying. So I'm taking my 5 minutes because this just disappeared. I don't know what happened. So
It's back.
They gave us 25.
we got 25
Nope,
minutes.
now it's
My
0.
5 back, please. This is for you guys. Okay, so exit interviews. We always do these exit interviews, right? But everyone's left. So what's the point of exit interviews in companies, right?
And who tells the truth anyway?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a stay interview. Stay interview. I want to know what you all want to make you stay. So whoever wants to think about it, what is it that you want to be happy to stay in a company? Okay, Eve.
I want the CEO of the company, if he's a man, to know the name of his child's dentist.
Whoa. She wants him to know the name of his child's dentist.
Excellent. Next, speak up loud. I got 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Thank you for listening.
Men to commit to doing laundry on Father's Day.
Oh.
Men?
She
Men?
wants men to commit to doing laundry. How about once a week?
How about every day? Every day.
We don't wanna do
ask-
laundry every
Okay,
day.
We're talking about women ask for what you want and then some. Don't compromise. Every day.
Weekends,
Every day. And then settle for once, 3 times a week. Okay. Next.
I think she said a good point, equity.
Thank you.
Equity in the company.
Make me part owner of the company. I don't have to be owner of 100% of the company, but give me a piece.
I mean, that's true. If employees all had equity ownership in the company, you would feel very differently.
This is true. The last chapter of my book, I wanted to do an alternative exit story. So not an IPO, not a private equity company taking over another company. I wanted some alternative to that. And it just so happens that as I was writing my book, the 40th anniversary of Hanky Panky happened. They gathered all 140 of their employees, including the people from the factory in Jamaica, Queens, as well as the white-collar workers from the showroom in Park Avenue. They gathered all of them together. They celebrated their 140th anniversary. Thank you for the reminder. And they handed the company to them. Hanky Panky is employee-owned.
Did the Chobani guy do the same thing? Yep.
That was very good.
There's an interesting concept. We're calling it equity now because that's the term of art, but it used to be called profit sharing.
Yep.
That there were
ESOP. Yep.
There were businesses that just saw it as a moral obligation to share the profits with the employees who were doing the work. And that has all changed. And now when we talk about equity, it feels unattainable in a way that profit sharing or giving over a business felt like it was the people's achievement.
Well, it's very much along the lines of how pension plans went the way of, defined contribution plans.
I
You had
love
your
the idea
401k
of profit
plans.
sharing. And by the way, profit and purpose.
And profit
Because-
sharing is a lot easier to make happen because the thing, I'm going to say, what about both? Because the thing about profit sharing is they can turn that on and off whenever they want to, right? Because they're agreeing to give you a piece of the profits. And I agree, we need to see more of that. Equity just means now you're stuck with me as an owner forever. And if there's profit sharing as a part of the equity, well, it's profit sharing forever for the life of the company.
But
Absolutely, it's
And
all,
it ties
it's
into
all of it together.
Trust, too, because your employees with purpose and passion will deliver the profit.
Right.
and
And
I'm going to bring it back to what Nadia and I started with. We need financial literacy, financial education, financial confidence, and the ability for women to believe that not only do they deserve it, but to know what to do with it and use that as a way to have power.
Exactly right. At Bank of America, it was the first time that they gave all of the employees stock options, like didn't matter where you were. There were women on my team who did not have, they worked in finance and they did not have a stock account. And they had to open a stock account this year because it was the first time that the bank gave them stock, and they were like, what do we do? And I thought, you work in financial services, you work on my team, and we're not educating you. And so if we don't give, so we can give equity, we can do all this stuff, but we're not literate. Like, as women, we're not talking about money, we're afraid to talk about it, and we're not being educated on it, and we're not being educated in the banks that we work in, right? So that is not happening, and the women aren't coming to the workforce in finance. We can be the best doctors and the best surgeons and the best lawyers, and we can create the best underwears, and we can have the best food, but then no one knows how to freaking manage it, even when we make it.
So that is a very important part.
Yeah.
Okay, let me
I
get-
will say this on the education side.
Quick question.
For those of us that work with the extreme wealthy in this country, I tend to just not use the word literate. It's my own personal preference. And the only reason is because after having met many billionaires who are just as clueless about their finances as the average woman on the street, it became very clear to me that literacy wasn't the problem. It was access to expensive-ass advisors who tell you what to do and how to do it right. So I just want to frame it as women are not any less literate than the wealthiest people on the planet. We just don't have banks of people who are paid to make sure that we manage our money right.
Right. And when you go to make that choice, if you're a female billionaire, you should interview 50 women advisors, but you don't. You can't because there's not 50 to line up. And that's my problem, is there should be 50 of them to line up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
we have to end because I promised I'd end on time, but I will take one last question. Wait, hold on. I have to take the one up here because their hand was up
Stripes?
first, but I will get to you after. We'll take questions later.
It's not a question, but like, let's remember that pay transparency legislation is in 13 of 50 states. That also includes equity. You can ask for benchmarks, and you can ask your peers, you can ask a lot of people. So that's available information we can go get. And the second thing I want to say is I want to answer your question about what I want from a CEO. The only thing in business we do not measure is progress on things like DEI and pay equity.
Yep.
We need those
True.
cards. We need to ask for them. I'm so tired of lip service being paid to that value when you don't fucking tell me how to hire people.
That part.
You don't tell me how we're doing as a company relative to our peers and in progress over time. And there's no kind of like 1 to 10 score. Like we need something.
No accountability.
And those are the benchmarks that we need for that kind of thing we truly value.
Well, I think what is clear, and by the way, we will take questions all later because I did open up the conversation for questions, so we will answer all of them later after the conversations. What is clear is power in business is in good hands with all of you fabulous women opening up your voices, your minds, and power is in our hands.
All
That is
right.
clear. So let's own our power. Thank you so much.